Gratitude isn't what you think it is. Gratitude is one of those concepts, the concept that sounds absolutely lovely, right up until someone says to you, just be grateful. Because when life feels chaotic and messy, gratitude can feel a bit like a very elegant idea and very poor timing. And yet, somewhere along the way, I realized that gratitude isn't about pretending that life is perfect. It isn't about loving the difficult, the painful, or the deeply inconvenient moments. But it is about recognizing that even the things we resisted, the things we hated or feared, it's often the things that shape us in ways that we can't necessarily see at the time. Not because they're wonderful, but because we survived them. We adapted, we grew. And sometimes we become someone we might have never become otherwise. Because if you told the younger me the things that I would be grateful for today, I would have probably laughed, cried, possibly both. Hi, I'm Lucy and welcome. Welcome to Beautifully Unfinished. It's the podcast about holding space for women navigating the next stage of their life. I'm not a therapist nor my coach. I'm just a woman who has been a very dedicated student of life's lessons. Learning sometimes gracefully. Oh no, let's be honest, most of the times the hard way. But if my stories, my reflections and my regular stuff-ups help you feel a little less alone and a little more understood, then this space has done exactly what it was meant to do. There's really so much to be grateful for. But it can be incredibly hard to see the wood for the trees when life seems to be throwing lemons at you. Yet, if you begin each day by acknowledging just a few things that you're grateful for, it's amazing how your perspective will start to shift. Instead of waking up with that mental shopping list racing through your mind, giving far too much credit, let's be honest, to everything that just might go wrong that day. And you decide to start your day from a very different place. And that changes everything. When I think holistically about my new normal, it honestly feels a bit like I'm on a plane in turbulence. My knuckles are white. I've got a clenched jaw. My heart is pounding. My ears are ringing. But once you move through the turbulence, something begins to change. There's a calm. And when I stop to think about what I'm actually grateful for, I realize there's just so much, so I had to narrow it down. I've decided to focus on my top 5. The first one was an unexpected one: outgrowing people. Nobody really warns you that growth sometimes looks a bit like distance. Not drama, not conflict, just a quiet, gentle drifting apart. It's painful at the time, but deeply peaceful later, because not every relationship ends in fireworks. Some simply, quietly expire. Number 2, things not working out. This took me years to appreciate, because disappointments feel so personal, deeply personal. Rejection, failed plans, wrong turns. At the time you feel like life is actually working against you. It's like something's gone terribly wrong, and how do you change this trajectory? But hindsight is a fascinating thing. Sometimes things not working out is actually life protecting you. And honestly, I wouldn't change this perspective for anything. Because getting older brings a kind of freedom and wisdom that youth simply cannot appreciate or provide. Number 3, grateful. Grateful to be getting older. Now, that might be a tricky one to get around your head, especially when your body provides you daily reminders that age is very much involved. Now, before I start worrying about a stretch mark, let's be generous there, more like a map of stretch marks, and not to mention the new laugh lines that seem to appear on my face with alarming enthusiasm, I have to stop and remind myself. Aging is a privilege. It's denied to so many. And it's about bloody time that I appreciated it. Younger me had very strong opinions about aging. I imagined confidence would disappear, that youth was somehow peak experience. What a load of nonsense. Yes, things change. My knees negotiate terms now. My metabolism has taken early retirement. I require multiple pairs of reading glasses that are strategically placed in the most random locations. But my perspective has improved dramatically. You worry less about public opinion. In fact, you start getting surprisingly brave. Sometimes impulsively so, and when you realize what you just said, you blush, you feel slightly embarrassed, yet oddly proud of your newfound confidence. Just this week, for example, I flew to Cape Town. Sadly, it was not on a holiday, but rather a trip sorting out papers. Papers with my son, and let me set the stage. The location, mainly home affairs, says it all, right? Fun. 42 degrees, 7-hour queues, moving forward what felt like a snail's pace, lower back cramping because I wasn't sitting in a chair, carefully rationed water intake because nobody really wants to negotiate public bathrooms. In short, at the end of the week, I was knackered. And by the time I landed back in Harare, 8 o'clock at night, exhausted, slightly delirious, dreaming of my hot shower, my microdole and my bed, the plane jolts to a halt. Seatbelt sign off and passengers politely start waiting their turn to exit. Except for one very enthusiastic gentleman who came from about 10 rows back and decided queues were apparently optional. Well, that's when he met the menopausal version of Lucy. In a tone brimmed with icicles, I calmly, and by calmly I mean firmly, asked him where exactly he thought he was going. And I suggested, in no uncertain terms, that he get back in line like the rest of humanity. Only afterwards did I realize my mouth had moved so much faster than my socially acceptable brain. I generally felt as though I needed to physically take my hand and clamp it over my mouth. Oh my word, the passengers around were staring straight ahead, except one delightful young gentleman who looked at me with the biggest grin. And honestly, I felt so proud. I was beaming. I was internally strutting my stuff. Bring on maturity. You compare less, you chase less, unless you're still navigating the starting blocks of dating. Well, that's a story for another day. But there's something incredibly liberating about no longer caring about the things that once consumed you so much. Aging, I've learned, is not a decline. It's refinement. And perhaps that's where gratitude becomes something far more interesting, because it's often only with time, perspective, and a little life experience that we begin to see things differently. Thank you for spending time with me today. It would mean the world to me if you liked the episode to like, follow, and subscribe, and to share it with someone that you feel like needs a little focusing on what's going right in their life rather than what's going wrong. Give them a little perspective. Join me next week for part 2. We will dive deeper into the fascinating science behind gratitude and why your brain is doing far more behind the scenes than you actually realized. Until then, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.